There are certain stories that start like fairy tales, bright-eyed, full of promise, wrapped in the sweetness of young love. But sometimes those very stories hide a darkness so deep, so violent, that no one could ever see it coming. This is one of those stories. It began in the quiet outskirts of Magnolia, Texas, a rural town known more for its magnolia trees than for headlines. A place where life was simple, slow, and mostly safe. And that's exactly what Isabella Cruz had been hoping for: safety, a new start, and maybe, just maybe, a little love. She was just 21, a young woman from Nicaragua, full of ambition and dreams. Her smile? Infectious. Her spirit? Unbreakable. She'd crossed the border years earlier with her brothers, following in the footsteps of her mother, who had left to find work in the U.S. Isabella wasn't just chasing the American dream. She was determined to catch it. She worked long hours at a local meat market, Chapman's, the kind of place where everyone knew your name. But Isabella didn't just slice meat and ring up customers. She was studying, posting fitness content online, sending money back home to help her sick aunt. She carried herself with purpose, like someone who knew where she was going, even if the road was hard. And then, one day in the summer of 2022, he walked in. His name was Travis Milton, 21 years old, born and raised in Waller County. A broad-shouldered, red-haired Texan with a boyish grin and the charm of someone used to getting what he wanted. He was an electrician by trade, but that day, he was just a customer. Isabella rang him up at the counter. He smiled. She smiled. He came back again, and again. Soon, roses were arriving at her workplace. Small gifts, notes scribbled on receipts. Her friends teased her. She laughed, and before long, they were inseparable. Travis made her feel seen. He wasn't like the other men who dismissed her accent or questioned her dreams. To Isabella, Travis was freedom, a fresh start, someone who didn't just accept her story. He wanted to be part of it. They moved fast. Too fast, some said. But Isabella didn't care. By October 2022, just months after they met, they got married. A courthouse ceremony, a few photos, and 2 kids smiling like the world was finally theirs. To the outside world, it looked like a happy ending. But real life? Real life doesn't wrap up in photo filters and Facebook posts. Behind those smiles was something else. Something darker. Something simmering beneath the surface. Because even fairy tales have shadows. At first, no one thought anything of it. Newlyweds are supposed to be clingy, obsessed, a little intense. But with Isabella and Travis Milton, something didn't feel right. Not to those who really knew her. At the Chapman's meat market, where Isabella spent long hours behind the counter, she used to be the kind of person who'd brighten your day with nothing more than a Buenos Dias and that radiant, open smile. But a few weeks after the wedding, her lights started to dim. She was showing up late, distracted, quiet. She flinched at loud noises. And there were bruises, subtle at first, then more obvious. One on her upper shoulder, another near her rib cage. "She's just tired," she said the first time someone asked. We stayed up late talking. But Ruth Alvarez, her supervisor and mentor, wasn't convinced. Ruth had seen enough in her years to know the difference between exhaustion and fear. And Isabella? She was afraid of something or someone. Then there were the uninvited visits. Travis started showing up at the store, not to buy anything, not to say hello, just to look for Isabella. He'd walk in, glance around like he was scanning the place, and then leave. Sometimes, he'd hang around outside. Other times, he'd come up to the counter and just stare. "He's protective," Isabella insisted. But behind closed doors, the story was shifting. One Tuesday, Isabella confided in her coworkers, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't think I can do this anymore," she said. "I don't want to be married." She was done. She was planning to leave. That day, she lifted the edge of her shirt to reveal a deep purple bruise across her side. "I didn't fall," she told them. "We argued. All night. I wasn't even allowed to sleep." Her co-workers were stunned. Some of them cried. One even begged her to go to the police. But Isabella shook her head. "It'll only make things worse," she said. "I just need to wait. I'll figure it out." And maybe she would have, if she'd had more time. But time was running out faster than anyone realized. Meanwhile, Travis was unraveling in plain sight. He'd started isolating her, discouraging her from visiting family, pulling her away from her friends. At home, he became unpredictable, angry, erratic, and something darker was brewing beneath his skin. Drugs. Meth. According to his own father, Russell Milton, Travis had confessed just days before the murder that he'd tried methamphetamine. That was a devastating blow. Travis had never been the perfect son, but drugs? That wasn't him. That was his brother Dean's story, not Travis's. Except it was. The once lovable high school football player was now jittery, paranoid, and dangerous. And Isabella? She was trapped inside a crumbling marriage with nowhere to run. She told her boss that she had an afternoon off coming up. Maybe they'd grab coffee. She wanted to talk, really talk. There was more she couldn't say out loud at the register. Cameras, customers, always someone listening. Friday, she said. Let's meet Friday. But Friday never came. Because by then, Isabella Cruz would already be dead. There are moments in life when everything teeters on the edge. One wrong move, one heavy silence, and everything you thought was safe collapses. For Isabella Cruz, that moment came in the week leading up to her murder. The signs were everywhere. On Monday, she showed up to work looking hollowed out. Her skin pale, her eyes ringed with exhaustion. She told a co-worker she hadn't slept. Not even a minute. We argued all night, she said. I wasn't allowed to close my eyes. Then, with a faint wince, she added something that would haunt those who heard it. He hit me after I got out of the shower. And the reason? She had gone to the movies with her aunt. That was it. That's what had sparked the outburst. That's what had lit the fuse. That same night, Travis Milton called 911. Not for Isabella, not for her injuries. For himself. His voice on the call was panicked, confused, twitchy. I think I did something. I feel off. I took something. I need help. The dispatcher asked him if he needed an ambulance. He hesitated. I don't know. I don't feel right. I think I've been drugged. When paramedics arrived, they found him dazed and paranoid. He admitted to taking meth, the same drug that had plagued his brother Dean. He was taken to the hospital for evaluation. His parents, Russell and Karen Milton, were devastated. That's the son that didn't do this stuff, his father said later, voice cracking. He wasn't perfect, but he wasn't like Dean. We thought he was the one we could count on. Now they weren't sure of anything. And as Travis spiraled, Isabella quietly planned her escape. On Tuesday, just 2 days before her death, she walked into the meat market with fresh bruises on her shoulder. Her co-workers asked again, was she okay? Was she safe? She told them she was going to leave him. Her voice was steady, determined. I'm never getting married again, she said. Not after this. They begged her to stay with them, to go to the police, to find shelter. But Isabella said she needed time, just a few more days. She had a plan. She was going to talk to someone on Friday, sort everything out. But behind the scenes, Travis was unraveling fast. He had stopped sleeping. He was becoming paranoid, possessive, agitated. He started talking about voices. He told his parents he felt watched. He didn't want to stay in a house he and Isabella shared anymore. Despite the money he'd just spent fixing it up, on January 10th, Isabella came into work for what would be the last time. Her boss, Ruth, took one look at her and knew something was wrong. She looked off, Ruth said, like something terrible had happened, or was about to. That evening, Travis was spotted by family members carrying a strange phone, not his usual one. When his mother asked about it, he got defensive. She eventually took the phone and unlocked it. The language was in Spanish. It was Isabella's phone. That's when everything fell apart. Karen and Russell rushed across the yard to their son's house, a small home set on the back of their property. They'd built it so he and Isabella could have privacy. They'd never imagined it would become a crime scene. Russell opened the door. What he saw would never leave him. Blood. So much blood. A towel soaked red. A trail leading down the hallway. And then her body. Slumped. Still. Headless. He turned to his wife. Don't come in here, he said. But it was too late. She had seen it too. They called 911 for their own son. And Travis? He was lying on the floor, crying. January 11th, 2023. The day started like any other in Magnolia, Texas. Cool air, cloudless skies, the faint hum of quiet suburban life. But by the time the sun had reached its peak, the small town would be holding its breath. At exactly 12:42 p.m., Waller County dispatchers received a chilling 911 call from Russell Milton. His voice was shaky, broken. "My daughter-in-law, she's on the floor. There's no head. Oh God, please hurry." The dispatcher tried to steady him, tried to get details. But there were no words for what he had just seen. Isabella Cruz, 21 years old, was lying on the blood-soaked floor of her home, her body mutilated, her head severed and missing. Within minutes, police and emergency responders swarmed the property. But this wasn't a rescue call. This was a scene of pure horror. They entered through the front door. Blood trailed across the living room. Cigarette butts littered the floor. Clothes stained dark red hung limply over furniture. And there, beside a small, blood-drenched knife, was Isabella's body. Her head had been removed with violent force. And then, the unimaginable. In the bathroom, sitting in the tub, police found it, her head, submerged, as if it were being hidden or washed. Officers froze. One of them, a seasoned detective, later said, "I've worked this job for 20 years. I've seen shootings, stabbings, even dismemberments. But this was different. It felt evil." Travis Milton was still at the house, in the living room, hands stained, tears in his eyes. He wasn't running. He wasn't hiding. He just sat there. Police handcuffed him immediately and led him to a cruiser. From the outside, the house looked like any other, a modest home built for a young couple, nestled just beyond his parents' backyard. But inside, it had become a place of death. Investigators got to work quickly. They followed bloody footprints from the bedroom to the bathroom that documented every stain, every object out of place. They bagged the murder weapon. They collected Isabella's phone, now found in Travis's pocket. And as they worked, neighbors gathered along the fence, stunned. People who knew the couple, who'd watched them laugh at barbecues or wave from the driveway, were in disbelief. How could someone who promised to protect her do something so monstrous? But here's the part that breaks your heart all over again. Just 8 hours after killing his wife, Travis had casually walked into the Chapman's meat market, the very place where they had met, and grabbed a beer from the fridge. Surveillance footage shows him strolling through the aisles like nothing had happened. Not rushing, not hiding, just calm. He opened the bottle in the parking lot, took a sip, and drove away. As if what he'd done meant nothing. As if the girl he had married, the one with stars in her eyes and scars on her skin, was already erased from his memory. But she wasn't forgotten, because by the end of the day, her face was on every news channel in Texas. Her name was whispered in stunned shock across every table in town. And her parents, still in Houston, were about to get the phone call no parent should ever receive. Isabella Cruz was dead, and the man she had married was the one who killed her. When the initial shock wore off, when the crime scene had been cleared and the sun dipped behind the trees, the real work began. Why had he done it? How had it happened? Was this a sudden explosion of rage, or the final, bloody act in a long-brewing storm? Detectives started with what they knew. Travis Milton was the last person to see Isabella Cruz alive. He lived with her. He had her phone in his pocket. Her blood was on his hands, literally. But that wasn't enough. They needed to understand his state of mind. Was he insane? Delusional? Drugged? Or worse, calculated? They brought him in for questioning. And what they got was unsettling. At first, Travis was quiet, shut down, not angry, not remorseful, just disconnected. The detective leaned forward across the table. "Jared, sorry, Travis. You were in the hospital Sunday night, right?" Travis nodded, slowly. "And you said you took meth?" Another nod. He admitted he'd never used the drug before. Claimed it made him feel not like himself. Said it opened doors in his mind he didn't know existed. The officer asked if he wanted to talk about what happened. Travis just stared at the wall. "Do you remember if she was awake?" Silence. "Did she do something to upset you?" More silence. But his body said what his mouth wouldn't. He fidgeted, tensed, breathed faster. His foot tapped beneath the table. The detective tried again. "There's a family grieving tonight. Her family. Yours. The only way to ease even a sliver of that pain is to tell the truth." And finally, Travis spoke. "I messed up," he whispered. "I lost my way." He said he'd been hearing voices, that the TV told him to kill her, that something else had done it, not him. "It wasn't Travis," he insisted. "It wasn't me." But then his voice changed. He muttered about the shower, about a knife, about blood. "Did you cut her head off while she was still alive?" the officer asked softly. Another pause. Then, "No, it was after," he said. "I think." He was starting to crack. They pushed harder. "Why did you put her head in the bathtub?" "Her hair was wet," he said. "Had he turned on the shower?" "Yes." "Was it to clean her?" No answer. But the images were already forming in the investigators' minds. A man, alone, soaked in blood, trying to clean what could never be cleaned. Meanwhile, Russell and Karen Milton, Travis's parents, were reeling. They'd raised their boys in a decent home. They weren't perfect. Their older son, Dean, had battled drugs for years. Meth, arrests, fights. But Travis? He was supposed to be the good one, the hopeful one, the one who could make something of himself. Karen sat down with detectives that night. She shook her head over and over. "I knew something was wrong," she said. "I felt it. I should have done something." She told them about the strange phone, the trembling hands, the way Travis had curled up on the floor after the murder, like a child, rocking, mumbling. "He wasn't right," she whispered. "But I didn't think he'd ever do this." Her voice broke. And then there was Dean, Travis's older brother. Dean had his own demons. But when asked about Isabella, he seemed genuinely shaken. "She was nice," he said. "Always kind. She didn't deserve this." Detectives asked if he knew her maiden name. He didn't. They asked her birthday. He had to check her phone. How little did this family truly know about her? Isabella, despite being their daughter-in-law, was a stranger in their home. A woman with dreams and scars who tried to build a new life, only to have it ripped away by the very man she trusted most. By the end of the interview, detectives had a chillingly clear picture. This wasn't a break-in. It wasn't a robbery. It wasn't a stranger. This was personal. This was rage. And it came from someone who looked her in the eye every single day and called it love. The room was cold, not from the air conditioning, but from what had been said in it. Travis Milton sat in the corner, hands in his lap, staring at the floor. The bright white walls around him looked sterile, emotionless, a perfect contrast to the storm unraveling inside his head. He'd already been through hours of questioning. He dodged, deflected, claimed voices, claimed amnesia. But now detectives had him in a corner, and they weren't letting him out. The officer leaned in again. "Tell me what happened, Travis. You owe it to her. To yourself." Still, Travis refused to look up. "It wasn't me," he mumbled. "I don't remember." But something changed in his posture. A slouch, a twitch in the jaw, a quiet tremble in his voice. The detective softened. "You loved her, didn't you?" A long pause. Then a whisper. "Yeah." "Then help us understand. Did she make you mad? Did she do something that set you off?" "She said she was leaving." His voice cracked. "She said she didn't want to be married anymore. She didn't want me." There it was. The reason, or at least the excuse. Rejection. Abandonment. Control slipping through his fingers. Travis didn't say it outright. He didn't have to. The silence between his words screamed louder than anything. "And then what?" the detective asked gently. "Did you grab a knife?" "She had first," he said quickly. "She was holding it. We were yelling. Did she try to hurt you?" "No." She was scared. Another silence. And then, "I took it from her." His hand twitched, remembering the feel of the handle, the weight, the power. "I stabbed her. I don't know how many times. I didn't mean to. I just lost it." "Why the head, Travis?" the detective whispered. "Why take her head?" Travis's face twisted into something unreadable. "I don't know. The voice told me to. It said I had to." "What voice?" "The one from the TV. It told me. She's not real." "Was the TV even on?" "No." There it was, the unraveling. The pieces clashing against each other. Fantasy, delusion, guilt. "Why did you put her head in the bathtub?" "I thought I could wash it." "Wash her hair. Wash the blood." "I don't know." The words were tumbling now. A flood of nonsense and fragments of memory. But they weren't what sealed the case. What sealed it was the moment he admitted it was him. That he'd done it. "I did it," he said. "I'm sorry." I lost my way. But sorrow was too late. You don't get to say sorry after something like that. You don't get to take a life, to destroy everything someone was, everything they could have been, and try to scrub the guilt clean in a bathtub. And yet, that's exactly what he did. After the confession, Travis curled into a fetal position in the corner of the interview room. He wept, moaned, begged for someone to take it back. But there was no taking it back. Not when Isabella Cruz was already in a morgue. Not when her mother, across the state, was screaming into her pillow, unable to breathe from grief. Not when every co-worker, every friend, every neighbor who had once smiled at their wedding photos now felt only rage. He had stolen her life. And worse, he had made it look so easy. Just hours after the murder, he walked into her workplace, took a beer, and drank it in the parking lot. Like he deserved to celebrate. But reality would catch up with him, and justice was coming. The wheels of justice don't turn fast enough when a family is grieving. In the weeks after Isabella Cruz's murder, the town of Magnolia was still in a daze. Her photo, radiant, joyful, was taped to storefront windows, shared across Facebook, lit by candles at makeshift memorials. And in every conversation, in every whispered prayer, one question echoed. Why? Why would Travis Milton, her husband, her protector, become her executioner? He confessed, yes, but his family clung to hope that he wasn't in his right mind. That maybe, just maybe, this was a drug-fueled psychotic break, a moment of madness, not malice. His defense leaned hard into that narrative. Travis had, after all, admitted to using meth just days before the killing. His 911 calls revealed paranoia, disorientation. His confession included voices, hallucinations, a belief that Isabella wasn't real. So the court ordered a mental competency evaluation. And the results? He was sane, delusional at times, maybe, but legally, fit to stand trial. He knew what he had done, and he knew it was wrong. There would be no insanity plea, no easy way out. In August of 2024, Travis Milton stood before the court and pleaded guilty to the murder of his wife. He waived all rights to appeal. The judge sentenced him to 40 years in prison. There was no applause, no relief, just the hollow silence of a future erased. At Isabella's memorial service, a local pastor stood at the pulpit. She was an angel, he said, voice trembling. She came to this country chasing hope. She found love. She gave love. And she died for it. Her aunt stepped up to the microphone. She was joy, she whispered. Pure, radiant joy. Behind her, a white bicycle stood beneath a halo of flowers. It was the same bike Isabella used to ride to work every morning. That image, her pedaling through town, strong and determined, would never be forgotten. Her mother couldn't make it through a speech. She collapsed into sobs, whispering over and over. She didn't deserve this. And no one, not even Travis's own family, disagreed. Even Karen Milton, his mother, later said, I wish I'd taken that phone from him sooner. I wish I'd walked into that house an hour earlier. I wish he was still here. But wishes don't bring back the dead. Isabella Cruz came to America with a dream to work, to study, to live free. She ended up buried in that same soil, betrayed by the very man who promised to protect her. She was more than a victim. She was a daughter, a friend, a fighter, a soul full of ambition and tenderness. And she should be here. There are stories that stick with you, not because of the violence, not because of the headlines, but because of the life that was lost, a life that mattered. Isabella Cruz was more than the victim of a brutal murder. She was a young woman with grit in her soul and fire in her eyes. She dreamed of building something real, something lasting. She wasn't afraid to work hard, to start over, to love deeply. And in the end, it was that love that betrayed her. Travis Milton didn't just steal a life. He stole a future. He silenced laughter that once echoed in the walls of their small home. He shattered the trust of two families. He left behind questions that may never be answered. Why her? Why that day? What could have stopped it? We may never truly know. But what we do know, what we must remember, is who she was. A daughter who crossed borders to make her family proud. A friend who lifted others even while carrying her own pain. A woman brave enough to say, "I'm leaving," even when it cost her everything. So tonight, let's not just remember how Isabella Cruz died. Let's remember how she lived. Let's say her name, not in fear, but in reverence. Let's carry her story so others recognize the signs, so others speak up, so others survive. Because Isabella mattered, and her light, though stolen, still shines.